Okay, well I'll try and use the time well and respect the fact that questions are actually more important than necessarily what I've got to say, but I do have a few things to say, and in addition to being leader of the council, I also chair the Greater Cambridge Partnership, which is effectively the teamwork that existed before the government created the Combined Authority. And the Combined Authority is also a teamwork job as well between the leaders and James, albeit that James leads on transport and has given it considerable focus and energy. So where do I start from? Well, I start from the needs of the communities in Cambridge and South Cambridge, but also the fact that we are a clear transport destination. Whatever we do in terms of future planning, and we can influence the scale of growth in the city, we certainly have to focus on exactly where the housing is going to go. So in the immediate future, in terms of planning, ourselves and South Cambridge are our next two council meetings. Will, I expect, approve the local plans with some changes here and there from the inspector, but they're relatively minor and certainly not worth the 4 years that the inspector took. So one of them is slightly more jobs at the biomedical campus, and there are a number of other changes. So that gives us the base and the certainty that we've got a housing provision for our area set, particularly for the next 5 years. And it also enables us to just think through with certainty where the transport needs are. So I'll come on to the biomedical campus in a minute, but what it also does is it focuses our mind on linking up the housing, which is particularly in the west. And this was down to South Cambridge in terms of where they located it. But it is the case that they have proposed, and effectively we've got, the jobs growth in the east. So we have something of an imbalance in terms of transport, and part of the teamwork, including what the GCP, Greater Cambridge Partnership, was already working on, is to provide high quality public transport link that reduces cars coming into this area, and it's an area I've lived in for over 20 years, but also connect out to the jobs. So we have currently got car-borne developments at Baberham, Granter Park and Hinxton, as well as having a mixed success in transport solutions for Addenbrooke's and the biomedical campus. So in terms of planning, one of the fundamentals for me is that it starts with our communities. And so when we are, as we will, I expect, approving these plans, we'll also be signalling a dialogue about the future, what people want in this area. As James has said, we expect that we will need in the future, and the question is when it will be delivered, a transformational public transport offer in a city which was not really well enough designed for horse and carts through the centre, and where an option of an underground clearly has major attraction. So there was work going on tunnelling ahead of James's election, but it has been given full emphasis in terms of the work. So we're expecting a report in December or thereabouts, and that will clarify the detail, particularly the detail technically. But the key issue is, for me, in terms of that overall transport picture, is twofold. First is that we have to fill the gap of that £3 billion in funding, 2 or 3 billion, because whilst we have the benefit of routes, including one through this area between the station and Trumpington, to make it work through the centre of Cambridge, we will need tunnelling. I don't think on surface light rail or tram will work, and that's been the pattern in a number of equivalent cities in Europe, but we have to go underground, and there are cities of our size looking at that, and there is technology that is going to be available, and including trials on this section, there will be looking at aspects like autonomous vehicles. So long term, we are doing whatever we can, and I do that on the Combined Authority, to enable that metro plan to achieve. The metro, and James may correct me, might have 4 routes out of Cambridge, it might have 6. In my calculation, there are 12 different ways people come into Cambridge. And there's also an issue about exactly how do people come through interchanges. So long term, we will need ways of getting people out of their cars, but the question is how many metro stations will be out there and where will people go? Whether we like it or not, the pattern of park and rides, and it isn't just in Cambridge, it's in similar cities and big cities, is that people drive to the edge of the city and then expect to interchange. And we certainly want to get them out of their cars. We have an objective now of cutting current transport levels by 24% as part of the Greater Cambridge agenda. It was 15% in 2011, but we've had an increase in traffic. So part of the answer is definitely for the future is transformational, and the metro will take a huge amount of pressure off. But I'm a defender of the bus service. I'm also a defender of cycling and other routes, because if you actually look at the way that people make transport choices in this city, particularly on shorter journeys and with the advent of electric bikes, I actually think cycling will actually gobble up more, particularly in the in-city movements, than people getting on buses. But I do foresee the growth of Haverhill, of Milden Hall, of St Neots, of potentially in Ely, of Newmarket. I foresee the opportunity of people being able to buy or rent homes outside of Cambridge at prices that we cannot compete with. I haven't got time tonight to talk about affordable housing, but that is the other huge challenge as well as congestion. So, metro, yes, but it's buses as well. So, for instance, going into the autumn, we'll have a meeting on Wednesday of the local liaison forum for the South East. I'm sure people will give views tonight. I'll be open for any views about the reports that come forward, because there will be a report coming forward from the Assembly, the Great Cambridge Partnerships Assembly, and then to the board, which I chair in October. So there will be a public report in the next couple of weeks about the South East Cambridge route. And should that be the option of an off-road proposal, obviously there is an on-road proposal which we'll need to consider, I think that will make a major difference to the amount of traffic that comes into this area, because it will give people real options. And that's what we want. We want real options for people needing to get out to Grantor Park, to Babraham, but we also want real options for people not to have to come up and down the 1307. The queue goes the other side of the Gog Hills in the morning. And we just need to work on giving people options. Like James, I believe that we will need a carrot and a stick, but I haven't got clarity on when the metro is going to be delivered, and I think that we need to have both the carrot and the stick, subject to community getting a say about, well, what is the carrot and what is the stick, about reducing congestion, and we need that in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm not prepared just to wait for a long time, but we have a dialogue with James. James holds some key transport powers, and we have to have that dialogue. So congestion charge, potentially that's a long term, but Stagecoach is not currently offering a decent bus service for this city. It's not offering any bus service further out. And I'm not saying some of the villages will ever get a really good bus service, but it's estimated that we will need at least 10 million a year, probably a lot more than that, to actually affect any significant improvement and to have any chance of a dialogue with them. They are a monopoly. So in the next 10 years, we need to improve buses for people from South Cambridgeshire and beyond, because James rightly represents the broader geography, and a lot of the people that come to work into our sites are coming much further, including from areas like West Suffolk. So we have to have a significant improvement in public transport sooner, and that is fair to the world, because it is going to be used by people on lower incomes, a lot of whom can no longer afford to live in this area, and it needs to be part of the solution. Now, that's the backdrop. And then in terms of the biomedical campus, yes, a route that goes off-road, subject to what the decision is made by all of the people involved, I think will make a major contribution to reducing traffic. But ultimately, it does need to be a carrot and a stick. We do need to dissuade people from driving in, because otherwise the buses will just get clogged in traffic. And people won't use them, even if they're well provided. Unless we can reduce the number of cars. So just providing this fast route which can traverse into a metro, and there could well be a metro down to Haver Hill, starting from the biomedical campus area in the future, isn't going to be enough. We have to have those incentives. And also in the short, I mean, I am not, I don't have shared James's view about park and rides. I do think that we need to have edge of city interventions. They may well not be quite as detached as the current ones are at locations like Milton or relatively random locations. And we do need to have Cambridge South. If we have it by 2021, I'll buy a bottle of champagne. I think we'd be lucky if we have it by 2023, and if it came by 2025, that would be better than we got out of Cambridge North. So we do need Cambridge South, we need East-West Rail commitment, albeit that that won't immediately help this area. We need shuttle buses between Babraham and Trumpington Park and Ride, because Babraham is now growing hugely fast. Trumpington is full. We have got a report coming to the GCP proposing additional park and ride capacity this autumn near Trumpington. And I can't answer all of the points in a short speech, but obviously people are well able to ask questions. We will work together on this. I personally see Cambridge attracting more jobs in 10, 20, 30 years' time, but I see the need for us to think through the housing delivery on a bigger geography with high quality public transport links. Those other places need to be highly sustainable, and just like people in this room will want to have a say about all major planning issues, the people in those communities will have a say. So it'll be up to the people in other areas like Haverhill, like Milden Hall near the airbase, where some of that housing goes. But we do need, I think, to be ahead of the game and shaping development. I don't believe in developers coming forward to tell us where development should be in the future. So we do need to get on with this now, and the Greater Cambridge Partnership will actually make James's job easier and save him money, because we will have up to £500 million to spend, and the bulk of that will go into these routes. And the next two routes, Chair, before I finish, that we're looking at are to Waterbeach and out to the east, more towards the east, towards Quay. And each of those routes could become metro, but in the meantime, potentially will give people much better bus options getting into the city. And the last thing I actually want is large car parks full of cars, despite the fact that we will still have people driving in, and the City Council is helped by the fact that some do. Thank you.